Hare Krishna. Today we are going to summarize and revise chapter number 9 of Jaiv Dharm. The title of this chapter is Nitya Dharma, Material Science and Civilization. In the beginning of this chapter, we have learnt about Lahari Mashe, who was originally, as we know, a singer who had taken a lot of good lessons in Delhi from experienced gurus in singing, and then he moved on to Godurma, and there he started singing in the company of Vaishnavas, and he was very much proud of his singing ups and downs and in his tones and his whatever he had learned, he wanted to show off to the Vaishnav community. Over a period of time, he became a disciple of Vaishnav Das, and under his guidance and his Guru Tattva, he became a very astounded and very elevated disciple and a Vaishnav himself. And this went on for about 3 to 4 years. And Paramahansa Babaji, one of the leaders of Vaishnavas, he was convinced that Larry Marshall he was as good as any one of them, and he was a elevated Vaishnavas, and they changed his name from Lahiri Mashe, Kalidas Lahiri, to Advaita Das. So he was now addressed as Advaita Das. Now, Advaita Das was a very astounding, a very high level Vaishnav now. He had a childhood friend named Devankar Chattopadhyay. Dibankar Chattopadhyay was a good administrator and an employee in the kingdom of these Muslims, and he had now retired. And he went back to his village, and there he came to know that Kalidas Lahiri was now a Vaishnav, and he had shifted to Godharma and was now addressed as Advaita Das. So he went to meet his childhood friend. So this was Digambar Chattopadhyay. Digambar Chattopadhyay and Advaita Das, they were the only survivals of their age group of the friends. All other had expired or demised. So Digambar Upadhyay showed his eagerness. He was a very, very astounded and elevated worshipper of Durga Mata. And he himself had written a book titled Tantra Sangraha. Tantra Sangraha, and it is about tantric knowledge, Mata Durgas. Now, allow me to elaborate this tantric knowledge. What does it mean? It means a class of works teaching magical and mystical formularies, mostly in the form of dialogues between Shiva and Durga. These are set to expound upon 5 subjects. The first one being the creation, then the destruction of the world, then the worship of the god, the fourth one being the attainment of all objects, especially of 6 superhuman faculties, and lastly, the 4 methods of union with the Supreme Spirit by meditation. So that is the tantras or tantric knowledge, and our Digambar Chattopadhyay was a very elevated student or philosopher of tantric knowledge, and he had written this book, Tantra Sangraha. And he was very much shocked that his childhood friend Advaita Das had become a Vaishnav. And he just could not hear the word Vaishnav. And whenever anybody uttered the word Vaishnav, he used to close his ears. He could not tolerate it. So he met his childhood friend Advaita Das, Digambar Chattopadhyay, and he expressed his agitation, disliking about Lahari Mashe, Lahari Kalidas Lahari or Advaita Das becoming a Vaishnav. He said, "What cow dung shit you have become by becoming a Vaishnav? How can you do this? You're not a civilized person. You cannot move around among the civilized people." And to the Advaita Das asked, "What do you mean? What do you mean by civilized people?" To this he said, "All those people who eat well, who eat meat, who take wine, and who dress up very nicely, and who speak the language which very high level people speak, high levels people speak about this, they are the civilized people." To this, Advaita Das said, "Eating meat and wine, drinking wine, is no good. It is not nutritious, and neither it is pure food. So Vaishnavas do not eat such food." And like dressing up the way you are describing the women dressing up and hiding their true soul knowledge, what they are inside, and artificial and glamour and hypocrisy revealing by dressing up very nicely clothes, etc. This is as good as prostitutes wearing such very nice goods and just to express their outer uh, beauty, hiding their inner beauty. And as far as speaking is concerned, it should be pleasing to the ears. And Vaishnavas are very much in line with speaking very nicely to other Vaishnavas or Sikha. They always speak about divinity, and they do not speak of hypocrisy all the time. Outside something else and inside something else. So that was the civilization of Digambar's Chattopadhyay's way of thinking, and this was the other way around thinking of the Vaishnav Advaita Das. So he said that this material knowledge, whatever you are talking of, it should be used only in as much as it is needed for livelihood to keep the body and soul together so that you can worship properly. The material knowledge should not be used beyond the livelihood means. And this is what is the material knowledge meant for. And most of the time, a person should be all the time meditating upon spiritual knowledge. And he said there are two types of knowledge. One is the Pramartika knowledge, which is the eternal or the spiritual knowledge, and the other one is the Lokic knowledge or about the material knowledge. And Advaita Das said he was very much convinced that this Lokic knowledge or the material knowledge is of no use in case it is not used only for livelihood, and the other knowledge was used only for spiritual knowledge. And he says, now you people, the material people, are going very gradually towards Kali Yuga and full of sins and full of hypocrisy. Advaita Das realized that he was wasting his time with this friend, but he did not want to annoy him because he had come after years and years to meet him. And with a journey of about 6 hours from the village, he had taken a boat to meet and make efforts to meet Advaita Das in his kutir in Navadvip Dham. And somehow or the other, he tolerated. He kept on speaking very calmly so that the time passes by and Advaita Das does not get angry and Digambar Das listens to him, Vaishnav. So this conversation went on for quite some time. Very interesting, very entertaining, very useful subject Bhakti Vinod Thakurji has taken on Nitya Dharma, material science and civilization. And to this, Advaita Das talked about the life journey being very, very small. It's a very small span of life. He described it as similar to one person staying in a inn or in a hotel. There is no point in improving the conditions of the room of the hotel or the inn, or buying new paintings and new furniture, etc., for that inn, because he also knows that everybody knows, the traveler knows that he is going to stay in that inn, in that hotel room for only a short while. So similarly, a Vaishnav knows that he is going to live in this world for a very short while. Why should he waste his time in material things like furniture and paintings and electrics, other gadgets, etc.? Why not totally focus on spirituality? And then Digambar said, what about the society? What will the society say? The Advaita says, we are very much happy in the society of Vaishnavas. They are all in the direction of spiritualities, speak honest, whatever they are inside, they are outside also, and there is absolutely no hypocrisy. The society of Vaishnava is the ideal society one should live in. Then Advaita said, okay, enough of now civilization. Now let's talk about the material science. To this, Digambar's Chattopadhyay says, material science includes whatever knowledge, skill, and beauty are to be found in the material world, as well in the various branches of knowledge, such as military science, medical science, music, dance, and astronomy. Prakriti, or material nature, is the primordial power, and by her own potency, she has manifested this material universe and all the variety in it. And he talked very high about Mother Durga, who was also known as Mother Nestarini. And Digambar Chattopadhyay, then praised a lot about the authors who had written a lot about the material science. And he said, just consider how many books have been written in pursuance of this material knowledge by great men such as Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and the famous Hakim. And to this, Advaita Das countered it. He says the true material science was given by Bhagwan Ji to Brahma, and that was the knowledge of Bhagwan Ji himself. And it is said over here in the Bhagavatam, it is mentioned in canto number 2. It said, Bhagwan Ji said to Brahma, O Brahma, knowledge of me is non-dual, and yet it has 4 distinct divisions: Gyan, Vigyan, Rahasya, and Tad Anga. A jiva cannot understand this by his own intelligence, but you can understand it by my own mercy. Gyan is my swarup, and my relationship with my potency is Vigyan. The jiva is my rahasya, secret mystery, and pradhan is my gyan anga. So, material science to Vaishnav Advaita Das was the knowledge given by Bhagwan Ji to Brahma about Bhagwan Ji himself. So that is the material science which Vaishnav had in mind. And he further said, Advaita Das, that there are 2 types of Gyan. One is the Shuddha Gyan and the other one is the Vishya Gyan. Shuddha Gyan is all about eternal, about spirituality. That is Shuddha Gyan. And Vishya Gyan is about the Vishyas, about the material things in the world. And he was very much convinced that this Vishya Gyan is of no use. The true Vigyan, he said, is that pure knowledge that is distinct from the material knowledge. Material knowledge should be used only to the extent of one's livelihood. I repeat, material knowledge should be used only for the livelihood of a person so that he can keep the body and soul together and not for sense gratifications. And Shuddh Gyan should always be used mainly, and that should be for spirituality, to know the eternal Bhagwan, to think of him all the time. He said, therefore, this material science is of no use unless it is used only for livelihood. And all people who do not believe in Bhagwan Ji, they engage themselves in material science and somehow or the other, directly or indirectly, they serve the Vaishnavas. For example, a carpenter who doesn't believe in Bhagwan Ji, he makes furniture which is used by Vaishnavas for their bhakti, for their asan, for their tables, for keeping things of books, for example, religious books and other things. Similarly, without their own knowledge, somehow or the other, Bhagwan Ji has made material science in such a manner that directly, indirectly, all such people who do not believe in Bhagwan Ji are engaged in material sciences, material things for their own sense gratification. So directly, indirectly, they serve the Vaishnavas. So this is what is about the material things. And these material things, he said, or material Vigyan, what Digambar Chattopadhyay meant was, this Vaishnav Advaita Das said, this is of no significance. This is of no significance, significance, and it is not Nitya Dharma. So that goes with the title of this chapter, Nitya Dharma, Material Science and Civilization. So, material knowledge, which is not only for livelihood, but is for sense gratification, is not Nitya Dharma. Then, a lot has been discussed in this chapter about Durga Mata, Shakti, and the Shakta, or the person who has that power. There's a very interesting topic and discussion between Digambar Chattopadhyay, who had served in the courts and kingdom of Muslims, and he was all praised for the way those civilized people who were meat eaters, who were taking alcohol, intoxicants, and who were wearing very high standard clothes which hid their sins, whatever they were inside, and they were totally different from outside to the world. They dressed up in such a manner. And similarly, they spoke all lies and they committed all sins. That was the society or civilization Digambar Chattopadhyay was talking about. Now, Mata or Durga discussions, and that is very interesting. Let's discuss a little bit and understand a little bit more about it. So this Advait, Advaita Das, he mentioned a lot about Shakti and the Shakta. That there is something called desire to do a activity. The person who desires, who has the power to convert his Shakti into realizing what he wants to do, he is more powerful. He is the doer. So Bhagwan is the Sakta or the person who desires to operate this world, consisting of the three gunas, Satyug, Rajagun, and Tamogun, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So all this is desired by Bhagwan Ji himself. So he is more powerful. The Sakti or the act of doing and the desire, they go together. Sakti by itself cannot work by itself. Sakti is not independent. It works with the desire of the Sakta or the person who wants to desire it. Only when the desire arises, then only Sakti is activated. So that is a very interesting discussion between the two. So Bhagwan Ji is more powerful because he is the one who desires, he is the one who is the doer of everything. He is the ultimate controller of everything. And Advaita Das further said there is only one type of Sakti and it manifests itself in various forms. The inner potency of Bhagwan Ji is known as Radharani Shakti, and the external potency of Bhagwan Ji manifests itself as Durga. So please remember this. The inner potency, which is more stronger, is Radharani, and the external potency or the Maya or the Jad Maya is Durga Rani, Durga Mata. So, but there is only one Shakti, and which is Chit Shakti. The other one is Jad Shakti. So Bhagwanji has only one Shakti, which is manifest in many forms. It is the Chit Shakti. And whenever there is any spirituality to be discussed or anything to do with spirituality, the Chit Shakti comes into manifestation. It activates. And it is Maya or Jad Shakti when it operates in material capacity. So always please remember this Chit Shakti and Jad Shakti or Maya Shakti. The inner Shakti is Chit Shakti, which is Radharani, and the outer Shakti is Maya or Jad Shakti, which is Durga. Chit Shakti leads to spiritual happiness. A lot is being discussed about Shakti. Chit Shakti, Radharani, leads to spiritual happiness. And all the Vaishnavas, they surrender on to Radharani so that they can reach Krishna Bhagwanji. Radha Dasyam, they are all servants of Radharani and pleading to her to unite them with Krishna Bhagwanji because Krishna Bhagwanji will never say no to Radharani's recommendation. So they all the Vaishnavas are under the service or they have surrendered to Radharani and they are Radha Dasyam, Das of Das of Radharani with a request to unite them with Krishna Bhagwanji to give them the mercy of Krishna Bhagwanji. They are all requesting Radharani. So that is the Chit Shakti. And Vaishnavas are Jeev Shakti who have abundant Maya Shakti. Very important. And this thing is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita also about the Jeev Shakti. And also remember one more thing which is mentioned in the Vedas. Shakti, Sakti Mator, Abhedya. There is no difference between Shakti and the owner of the Shakti. There is no difference. So Bhagwanji is the possessor of the Shakti and the actually doing of the Shakti, they are one and the same thing. There is no difference between the two. And it is further mentioned in by Bhaktivinoda Thakurji about Shakti. Very interesting discussion. Bhagwan has only one Shakti which is manifest in different forms. When it functions in spiritual capacity, it is known as Chit Shakti. And when it operates in a material capacity, it is known as Maya or Jad Shakti. It is The Vedas have said that Bhagwan's divine Shakti is full of variety. It is mentioned in the Bhagavatams. Further is mentioned in this chapter the Shakti that supports the three modes of material natures Sattva Shakti, Sattva Shakti, Raja Shakti, Tama Shakti, Satogun, Rajogun, and Tamogun is known as Jad Shakti. And its functions are to create the and destroy the universe. The Puranas and the Tantra, they refer to it as Vishnu Maya, Mahamaya, or Maya, and so on. There are many descriptions of her activities. For example, it is said that she is the mother of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and that she slew the demons' brothers Sumba and Nisumba. The living entity remains under the control of this Shakti as long as he is engrossed in material enjoyment. But as long as the Jiva is endowed with the pure knowledge, he goes towards eternity, he goes towards spirituality. At that time, he becomes aware of his own Swarup, and this awareness enables him to understand and come out of this Maya Shakti and attain the liberated status with his Chit Shakti. So when the Maya is removed from a person's thinking and he starts believing in Chit Shakti, he is then liberated. He then comes under the control of Chit Shakti and obtains spiritual happiness. So this is a very interesting discussion between Digambar and Advaita about Shakti. And then Advaita further says, yes, the Vaishnavas are the two true Shaktas. Vaishnavas are under the control of Shri Radhika, who is the embodiment of Chit Shakti. It is only under her shelter that Vaishnavas render service to Krishna. So, who is more Shakta than the Vaishnavas? Nobody is more powerful in the human beings than the Vaishnavas because they are under the mercy of Chit Shakti Radharani. And they therefore do not see any difference between the real Shaktas and the Vaishnavas. And Advaita Das talks very high about Radharani and being the Chit Shakti. She manifests as the internal potency and she is Durga when she is manifested as the external potency. So, to conclude, there is only one Shakti of Krishna Bhagwanji or Bhagwanji, and it manifests itself as Radharani when it is in the form of Chit Shakti or in his internal potency, and it manifests the same Shakti manifests itself as Durga when it manifests itself as Maya or Jad Shakti or external Shakti. So this is the interesting discussion between the two. Okay, going further to conclude, the discussion goes on about happiness. The discussion goes on about happiness, and Advaita Dasa concludes that happiness is a realization of Bhagwanji within oneself, who Paramatma resides inside every human being. And when you realize inside, when you are at peace inside, that is the true happiness. That is the true spiritual happiness. And he also talks about uh, Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned in chapter number 7. Advaita Das quotes about chapter number 7, shloka number 4 to 6, where the Bhagwanji, Krishna Bhagwanji has talked about the Jad Shakti, the Jiv Shakti of Krishna Bhagwanji. What is Jiv Shakti? It is the Tatastha, that means shore between ocean water, and the shore or the land, that is what is called shore or tat. So Jeev Shakti is the Tatastha Shakti of Krishna Bhagwan Ji, and it is inferior to the inner potency, but it is superior to the external potency because it is in between. It is on the shore, Jeev Shakti, and this is mentioned in Shlok number 4 to 6 about Krishna by Krishna Bhagwan Ji in Bhagavad Gita. It's a very interesting part. I will read out for you. I'll share this knowledge also with you before we conclude this chapter. Chapter of Nitya Dharma, Material Science and Civilization. So about Bhagavad Gita, it is mentioned in chapter number 7, Shlok number 4 to 6. Bhumir apo analo vayu kham mano bodhir ivacha ahankar ityam mi bhin prakriti ashtata अपरयम इस त्व अन्यम प्रकृतिम विधि में परम जीवा भूताम महाबाहो ययदाम धार्त्य जगत एतत् योहिनी भूतानि सर्वनति उपाध्याय अहम कृष्ण तत्य जगत प्रभाव प्रलयस तथा मीनिंग कृष्ण भगवान जी says my inferior or material prakriti is comprised of the 8 components, and they are earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intelligence, and ego. These 8 elements are under the control of Jad Maya. There is, however, another Prakriti which is superior to this Jad Shakti. Please remember this. There is another Prakriti which is superior to this Jad Prakriti and which consists of the Jivas. So Jivas are superior to the this material energy or potency of 8 components of earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intelligence, and ego. So by this material world, it is perceived or seen. The jivas perceive this material energy through this material world. So I repeat, my inferior, Krishna Bhagwan says, my inferior material prakriti is comprised of the 8 components, earth, water, fire, air, space, mind, intelligence, and ego. These 8 elements are under the control of Jad Maya. There is, however, another prakriti which is superior to this Jad prakriti and which consists of the jivas. By it, this material world is perceived or seen. So Bhagwan Ji has elaborated about Jeev Shakti, which is superior to the Jad Shakti or Maya, but inferior to the inner potency of Kishan Bhagwan Ji. To this, Digambar could not digest that he was losing the ground about non-Vaishnavism. As I said earlier, whenever he heard anything praise or any word about Vaishnavism, he used to close his ears. He could not tolerate it. Then he started talking about his own book, which he had mentioned. He had mentioned about the Tantra Sangraha, about the tantric knowledge. Then he started also quoting about the Devi Gita and Devi Bhagavatam. So he was all the time in praise of Devi Durga Mata as if she is the ultimate Shakti and she is the doer of everything and would not listen anything about the Vaishnavism. And then what we have learned over here is that association of the cultured, civilized people of Vaishnavism is ultimately that is recommended, and not the civilized people, what we have learned as described by Digambar Chattopadhyay, people who eat meat, who take wine, who dress up in a very flowery or unimagined or unrequired way of very richness way of dressing up, and who are all the time speaking lies to hide the truth, and committing sins all the time. We are not to keep the association with them, but we have to keep association with Vaishnavas all the time. And then we have learned about Shakti and we have learned about material science. Material science should be used only to the extent of one's livelihood. And rest of the time, it should be all the time spiritual knowledge we should be focused on. So thank you very much for being with me. And with this, we come to the end of chapter number 9 of Jaiv Dharm, which is titled Nitya Dharma, Material Science, and Civilization. Thank you.